So the manipulation of the body politic, it's about you. It's about mobilizing people against people like you if you disagree. And I'm not talking about if you're conservative. I'm talking about if you dissent from the woke orthodoxy in any way. Okay, and you think you're safe. If you're a liberal, if you agree with the left on some of their policy priorities, you think you're safe. You're not. You're not safe for one moment in time. The minute you become inconvenient, they run you over. See, here's the thing about the left. If you are a normal human being, then generally you're a little uncomfortable about the idea of the mob, but you like people individually, right? You like people on an individual level. You want those people to be treated decently. But the idea of the mob, the idea of the people collectively being the big deciders, that's a little bit uncomfortable, right? That's why we like checks and balances in the United States. If you are on the left, they love, quote unquote, the people, but they hate individuals. And if you're in their way, they will run you over as though they're in a Ford F-150 truck and you are just standing out there in their way. That is all that the left is. I mean, the left is just a machine for running people over in their pursuit of utopia. Okay, so if you believe, as a good-hearted liberal who just disagrees with me about tax rates and about abortion and about key issues, right? We can have those key disagreements. But if you agree with me about individual rights, like freedom of speech and the ability to disseminate information and have discussions with people across the other side of the aisle, then you're going to have to make a decision. Do you wish to move along with the woke left because you agree with them on policy and run over rights in the process? Or do you wish to preserve rights and maybe it'll make it a little bit tougher for you to convince people of your political agenda, but at least you'll have preserved the rights? That's the decision that's going to be up to people who are liberals but not leftists. Okay, that's your choice. Not up to me. It's up to you. Okay, because they're coming for everyone. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. And it doesn't matter how nice you are. This is a perfect example of individuals not mattering. All that matters. Well, see, here's the thing. On the left, what they actually believe is that your belief system, it's so weird. They believe that your belief system is what makes you good or bad. You can be a perfectly crappy human being, but if you believe the right things, this makes you a good human being. Normal people believe that it's the things you do on a daily basis that make you a good human being. Right? It's your aspiration to continue to do more good things on a daily basis. That's what makes you a good human being. Folks on the left, on the hard left, they believe that you can be the nicest person in the world, but if you believe the wrong things, they will run you over. So here's a perfect example. This column just struck me so hard over the weekend. It's a piece by a woman named Virginia Heffernan. Okay, Virginia Heffernan, writing for the Los Angeles Times. It's called, "What Can You Do About the Trumpites Next Door?" Quote, "Oh, heck no. The Trumpites next door to our pandemic getaway, who seem as devoted to the ex-president as you can get without being Q fans, just plowed our driveway without being asked and did a great job. How am I going to resist demands for unity in the face of this act of aggressive niceness? On some level, of course, I realize I owe them thanks. And man, it really looks like the guy backdragged the driveway like a pro. But how much thanks? These neighbors are staunch partisans of blue lives. And there aren't a lot of anything other than white lives in this neighborhood. Oh my God, they like cops. Holy, they like cops. This is also kind of weird. Back in the city, people don't sweep other people's walkways for nothing. Maybe it's like what Eddie Murphy discovered in that old Saturday Night Live sketch, White Like Me. He goes undercover in white makeup and finds that when white people are moving among their own, they pop free champagne and live the high life. As Murphy puts it, slowly I began to realize that when white people are alone, they give things to each other for free. Hezbollah, the Shiite Islamist political party in Lebanon, also gives things away for free. The favors Hezbollah does for people in the cities Tyre and Sidon probably don't involve snowplows, but like other mafias, Hezbollah tends to its own, the Shiite, sick, elderly, and hungry. They offer protection and hospitality and win loyalty that way. And they also demand devotion to their brutal us versus them anti-Sunni cause. Some of us are family, the favors say. The rest are infidels. The same is true with Louis Farrakhan, who currently helms the Nation of Islam. This person is crazy. This person needs to be in a rubber room, like, immediately. Like, put this person in a straitjacket and drag them to the hoo-hoo house. This is like, while the Southern Poverty Law Center classifies him as a dangerous anti-Semite, much of his flock says he's just a little screwy and unfailingly magnanimous to them. When someone helps you when you're down, or Snowden, it's almost impossible to regard them as a blight on the world. In fact, you're more likely to be overwhelmed with gratitude and convinced of the person's inherent goodness. You might end up like the upper-class family I stayed with in France as a teenager. They did not attend a citywide celebration for the 100th birthday of Charles de Gaulle, the war hero who orchestrated the liberation of his country from Nazi Germany in 1944. They did have several portraits of Philippe Pétain, Nazi collaborator, on their wall. When I screwed up the courage to ask how it was for them during the occupation, the lady of the house replied, "We were happy because the Nazis were very polis. I didn't know the word, so I excused myself to consult a French-English dictionary. I was in tears when I found the entry, polite." So when I accept generosity from my pandemic neighbors, acknowledging the legitimate kindness with a wave or a plate of cookies, am I also sealing us in as fellow travelers who are very polished to each other, but not so much to them? Now, let it be said, there are certain perspectives on the world that can actually make you a bad person, right? If you believe that slavery is a good idea, this can make you a bad person. If you believe in the murder of all members of X group, this can make you a bad person. But she is currently likening a Trump supporter who plowed her driveway for her to Hezbollah, Louis Farrakhan, and the Nazis. I have a feeling that this person's belief are making her an actual, honest-to-goodness, in daily deed bad person. As this person says, loving your neighbor is evidently much easier when your neighborhood is full of people just like you. I love that she's just throwing it. Like, how does she know? If she were black, how does she know the neighbors wouldn't come over and plow the driveway? Does she know that? She has no evidence of that whatsoever, other than her own unjustified moral superiority and belief that her next-door neighbors, for being Trump supporters, must be vicious Nazi racists who would only do this for a person living next door who is white. She's just thrusting that on them. She doesn't know them at all. Literally, the only two things she knows about them are that they're nice and plowed her driveway for her and did her a favor, and they voted for Trump. So instead of her saying to herself, maybe it's possible that some Trump supporters are nice people, and I've miscast and mischaracterized many Trump supporters and their belief systems. Instead of her thinking that, it's, no, it must be they who are wrong. It must be I who am the morally wonderful one. Okay, I don't care what dirt this person lives on with me. We ain't in the same country. If she, like this is wild stuff. She says, what do we do about the Trumpites around us? Like Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who spoke eloquently this week about her terrifying experience during the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th, Americans are expected to forgive and forget before we've even stitched up our wounds or gotten our vaccines against the pandemic that former President Trump utterly failed to mitigate. My neighbors supported a man who showed near murderous contempt for the majority of Americans. They kept him in business with their support. But the plowing. On January 6th, after the insurrection, Senator Ben Sasse issued an aw-shucks plea for all Americans to love their neighbors. At the time, I seethed. The Capitol had been just desecrated. But maybe my neighbor heard Sasse and was determined to make a bid for reconciliation. So, here's my response to the plowed driveway for now. Politely, but not profusely, I'll acknowledge the Sassian move. With a wave and a thanks, a minimal start on building back trust. I'm not ready to knock on the door with a covered dish yet. I also can't give my neighbors absolution. It's not mine to give. Nobody asked you for absolution, you crazy person. Nobody asked. What are you absolving them of? Is it a nice thing for you and have different views on politics? And your answer is they're asking you for absolution, but you can't give it? Honestly, if I were if I was this lady's neighbor and I read this piece, I would take my snowplow, I would go out into the street, I would gather as much snow as humanly possible and dump it directly on her driveway. I would pile that sucker to like 8 feet high, and she can dig that out with a trowel, for all I care. What a nasty piece of goods. Seriously. But this is the world. Do you feel the unity? Do you feel it? I feel the unity. And I especially feel the unity when elites in our society mirror this perspective and then mobilize the levers of power in order to push forward this perspective, such that if you disagree with them, it's because you just want to break the country. I love this. She says, I can offer a standing invitation to make amends, not with a snowplow, but by recognizing the truth about the Trump administration, and more important, by working for justice for all those whom the administration harmed. So in other words, I don't care that you did a nice thing for me. Only when you bow before Zod, only when you agree with me, will you be deemed one of the morally elect. Hey, this is the woke priesthood at work. So, which side do you want to be on, liberals? This is my question. You want to be on the side of Virginia Heffernan? She sound like somebody that you want to live next door to? Or would you like to live in the same neighborhood as the Trump supporter who disagrees with you on tax rates and immigration, but also might plow your driveway once in a while and recognizes that you actually are brothers in arms against many of the myriad ills that wreck countries all over the world historically? There can be no unity with this. There can't. And if people who agree with this sort of stuff control the levers of power, there will not be any unity. It's just going to get worse. It's just going to be worse from here on in. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.